Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It is coming to you live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda in Accra. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up this evening, the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nartey George, justifies the upcoming biometric registration of all SIM cards in the country. He has been explaining why this is different from the previous ones done a few years ago. Also in the bulletin, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, calls of strike action following a desperate appeal from government to settle the matter within 2 weeks. And later in the bulletin, Vice President Professor Jane Opoku-Agyemang has renewed calls for Ghanaians to embrace agriculture as a pathway to national development and self-reliance. Details of all of these and more, plus business and sports, are the end of the show, coming to you from our studio at Adesanwe in Accra. Before that, though, let's bring you some news summaries with Christabel. Hello, Christabel.
Hi, Martin. You look really good.
Thank you.
We begin with the Ministry of Communication because the minister says that the new SIM re-registration that will soon be undertaking will make the activities of mobile money fraudsters very expensive to do. He says that Momo fraudsters will not be able to access any government services when they are caught. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has called for peace in the ongoing conflicts between Iran, the United States and Israel. Speaking at a special iftar for Muslims with members of the Muslim community at the Jubilee House on Monday, March 16, 2026, the president called on the global community to intensify efforts to end the war. He also appealed to the Muslim faithful to use the period of fasting and prayer to seek divine intervention for lasting peace in the region. The Ghana Armed Forces has announced that it has completed the selection of 2,000 recruits, being the first in the series of 4 batches. In a statement issued on March 17 by the Acting Director General of Public Relations, Captain Veronica Ahin, the selected personnel are expected to, on Wednesday, March 18, report at their various selection centers across the 16 regions of the country for their appointment letters and prospectus. Finally, police in the Ashanti South region have arrested 3 persons in connection with the alleged killing of the Kusasi chief in Asawase in July 2025. Addressing the media in Bekwai on Tuesday, March 17, the Ashanti South Regional Police Commander, DCOP Joseph Hamon-Yaba, disclosed that arrangements are underway to transfer the suspects to the Ashanti Regional Police Command for further investigations. He revealed that a key suspect, identified as Ilyasu, also known as Abodam, is still on the run and appealed to the public for assistance. These are all on our website, 3news.com. Please make time to visit there. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. We are starting from the labor front, where you'd recall that the last few days have been fraught with labor concerns. So the key amongst all the labor developments is that of CLOGSAG, and today we are told the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana has suspended its nationwide strike following an appeal by government to allow more time for negotiations over salaries and conditions of service. CLOGSAG began the industrial action on the 9th of March 2026 in protest against what it describes as government's failure to implement agreed conditions of service for its members. The strike disrupted essential public services, including administrative processes, local government operations, documentation services, and the coordination of public programs across the country. After a series of engagements and a formal plea from government, the National Executive Committee of CLOGSAG agreed to suspend the strike for 2 weeks to pave way for further negotiations and an amicable resolution. The Executive Secretary of CLOGSAG, Isaac Bampo Addo, says the decision is intended to give dialogue a chance. So let's listen to him moments after he addressed the media.
The National Executive Committee of Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana, CLOGSAG, on 17th March 2026, reviewed the appeal by government to call off the nationwide strike action and allow government 14 days to come to an amicable resolution of the issues with the salary structure and conditions of service of members of CLOGSAG. EXECO therefore has suspended the nationwide strike all members of CLOGSAG are to report to work by Tuesday, 24th March 2026.
And that is Isaac Bampo Ado, the Executive Secretary of CLOGSAG, speaking there. Let's speak to Naana Opoku, our labor correspondent, who has actually been following this very keenly. He's joined us on phone for a quick chat. Daniel, thank you for your time. Can you clarify what exactly informed the decision of CLOGSAG to call off the strike? Is it just because government said, please give us some time and call it off?
Right, so good evening to you. When we listen clearly to the leadership of CLOGSAG, we realize that government really showed commitment in trying to get the issues resolved. Somewhere 2 weeks ago, there has been this commitment by government for CLOGSAG to call off the strike. But because CLOGSAG then did not have anything concrete to as an evidence to table it before their members, for the reason they hung on to their strike. Currently, as I speak to you, they have been able to receive a letter, the document indicating that government is ready to pay. It has been signed by the Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment, indicating when the salary structure and also the economy of service will be concluded between government and the leadership of CLOGSAG. The reason they have decided to call off the strike, awaiting government. Because when you listen clearly, they are giving government a maximum of 2 weeks. And beyond 2 weeks, in case government is not able to carry through, then obviously they may have to rethink the strike decision and also they have to embark on a strike.
Right, and we know that they have given government a 2-week ultimatum. I mean, we know that also this strike has been largely informed by what they say is conditions of service. What kind of assurance did they get that all these conditions of service will be met or addressed within the 2-week period they've given government?
Right. Usually, when you are negotiating with the other parties, there is a need to have what's called a good faith. So they have developed good faith with government, and they believe that government should be able to abide by the 2-week ultimatum that they have given and the 2-week ultimatum that they have requested. But that has been the initial discussion. I do recall somewhere last week where they had to meet the National Security Officer, National Security Minister, for them to sit and thrash the matters out. And within that meeting, government requested for 2 weeks. And right after that, since then, government has still requested for 2 weeks. So based on the commitment and also the consistency on the position of government requesting for 2 weeks, the reason CLOGSAG had decided to abide by the 2-week ultimatum that government has requested for them to call off their strike, which they have done. And then subsequently, there will be a series of engagement to see how their concerns will be addressed. And also, the Secretary Minister of Labour and Jobs and Employment, Martin Asiedu-Dartey, has been so much enthused about the decision by CLOGSAG to call off the strike. And he says that very soon he's going to engage other key stakeholders, including the finance industry, to fine-tune how the payments will be done. Also look at government's budget allocation in terms of trying to raise that maximum amount to defray the cost for members of CLOGSAG.
And if they have that kind of assurance from government, I mean, having, like you indicated, because of the steps government has taken, why wouldn't they call it off completely and then government can work within the 2-week period? Because we know it's only a suspension, not a total cancellation of the strike.
So, Martin, let's start from here. When we look at the position of the Labour Act, the Labour Act is very clear. The Labour Act does not recognize suspension of strike. The Labour Act recognizes call of strike call. But in the case of CLOGSAG, they have decided to suspend the strike based on the fact that they want government to show some maximum of attachment to their concern, so that they will not want to have a total call where they believe that government will be so reluctant in trying to resolve their problem. So suspension of the strike means that we can also come back on the strike until government fails to resolve the problems within the 2-week ultimatum, the 2-week window that they have given.
Okay, and maybe last 2 questions before you leave us, Daniel. We know that it is a suspension if government is unable to sustain this level of commitment that CLOGSAG has seen, for which reason they've suspended the strike. Does that mean they will go back to strike?
Right. So when I spoke to the Executive Secretary of CLOGSAG, Dr. Isaac Bampo-Ado, he was basically telling me that in case government does not respect the part of the baggage, then obviously they may have to call for a National Executive Council meeting. And the council meeting will determine whether to begin the second leg of the strike or to just keep on waiting on government to get the issues resolved. So that's what he has told me. Now they are still monitoring. And in taking part of the monitoring, they'll also be engaging with government to get the issues resolved. So let's wait and see. Let's operate within the 2-week ultimatum, and let's see what happens. But if government fails, that means that CLOGSAG may have to call a National Executive Council meeting and possibly either reignite the strike or decide to just abide by the time and wait on government.
That question was actually premised on the fact that since time immemorial, anytime they declare a strike, government takes a few steps, then they suspend. It goes back, they declare a strike, suspend. So we were thinking that at least this time around it will be a total call-off. But as you have said, we can only wait and see what the next few days hold for this development or meeting between CLOGSAG and government. The last question then would be, for the week or two that they were on strike, the services that were not rendered, people who suffered as a result of this strike, has CLOGSAG stated how they intend to, solve those problems? How do they intend to at least give some form of assistance to those who have suffered?
You realize that when CLOGSAG decided to suspend the strike, ideally would have expected that it would begin work from tomorrow, because tomorrow is a working day. And so they'll begin work from tomorrow and possibly on Thursday. But as I speak to you, CLOGSAG is saying that they will begin work next week, 24th. That's next week, Tuesday. That's when they're asking their members to come back to work. Then I ask the question, why would they want to prolong the strike to next week? It means that already services have been disrupted and people are really in a very dark situation. But their position is that they may have to send communication around the country so that their leadership will be able to mobilize the entire members who have traveled outside the country for them to come before they can begin any maximum productivity can take place. The reason they have decided to begin work from next week. So let's wait and see what happens from next week, and also within the space of 2 weeks, whether government will be able to abide by its part of the bargain.
That sounds like a convenient answer they've given to your question, Daniel, but thank you for speaking to us.
I hear you, Martin.
Right, Daniel Opoku is our labor correspondent, updating us on the strike suspension by CLOGSAG, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association. Now, they had been on strike for almost a week, or probably a little over a week, as a result of what they call conditions of service which government over the time has failed to satisfy. So it has to do with issues of salaries and other conditions of service that they have consistently used as a bargaining chip to get government to do their bidding. But as it stands, we are told that they have suspended the strike following commitments from government. So we wait to see what the next few days hold for services that they provide. Coincidentally, Monday is a holiday. That's next week, Monday. Coming Friday is also a holiday. So it seems as though they're going to be having extra days of staying home without going to work. They are resuming, although they've suspended the strike, they are resuming on Tuesday. So they still have at least 4 to 5 days of no service to be rendered to the public. But government's commitment is what they are working with. Would update you on any new developments that arise as a result of this. This is still Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Do let us know what you make of this latest development. If you go to our website, 3news.com, we are streaming also on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can also get to see the specific components of the statement that was issued by CLOGSAG on why they have decided to suspend the strike. Then you can also send us your thoughts and messages on the various stories we have for you this evening. We'll do well to get the thoughts of a labor expert who has also over the last few days been asking government to step up to the plate and ensure that this particular development is quickly resolved. When we do get him, we'll put a few questions to him. Another big development in the country has to do with SIM re-registration. Well, the current Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation, Sam George, says it is not a re-registration, but it is a fresh registration, more or less saying that the previous registrations we have done in the past does not carry weight, and that what they are doing does not necessarily matter whether you've registered already or not. This is a clean slate we are starting from, and this is, in his words, the best registration exercise that country is about to embark on. And before this, Many of you have already been sharing your thoughts. Let's go straight to what exactly is informing this decision by the minister. Now, Sam George has justified Ghana's renewed push for a biometric SIM registration, warning against the risks of transferring compromised data into a new system. Speaking at a media engagement, the minister revealed that parts of the existing database may have been fraudulently acquired, raising concerns about the integrity of current SIM registration records. And there's a quote by him: "There is data in the current system that may have been fraudulently acquired. Migrating it into a new system without proper cleansing does not solve the problem. It simply transfers the flaws," he stated. According to him, the new biometric SIM registration exercise is designed to correct these anomalies by ensuring that all data is verified and authenticated before being integrated into a more secure digital ecosystem. This is also, according to the minister, a step to reducing mobile money fraud, as fraudsters will risk losing the SIM, phone, and their Ghana cards. Let's listen to Sam George when he addressed the media at the engagement, which ended a few minutes ago.
And mind you, I keep saying, this is not a SIM re-registration. It is a SIM registration. A re-registration means you're re-registering something that already exists. You're building on something that already exists. That's not what we're doing. The systems are completely different. And so, is there a third-party role to be played? Yes. There's going to be a service provider for the NCA and the NIA that's going to work with the MNOs to build the platform. However, the platform is going to be owned by the NCA. So the data that's going to be generated throughout this registration belongs to the NCA and the state. They are going to be custodians of it. The service provider is only going to provide the technical platform that's going to be used to carry out the self-registration and all the registrations that we've spoken about. What's the cost to this? At the moment, the specific cost for a registration of a SIM card has not been finalized. The ministry has an idea what the pricing should be because we're working with NIA, we're working with a number of institutions. But as part of our stakeholder approach, the MNOs have raised issues relative to the cost model that we have proposed. And so there are engagements happening between the regulator and the stakeholders, who are the MNOs, because, like I said, whatever cost is going to be borne by the MNOs, they will bear a large chunk of it. The NCA will carry some of the cost relative to public sensitization. Those things come at cost. If the NCA is supposed to run a campaign on public sensitization to register, there is a cost to it. So that is going to be borne by the NCA. But when it comes to the cost of registering the SIM, doing the real-time verifications with the NIA and all of that, that will be borne by the MNOs. We would agree on a final amount or number, and I don't want to put out any numbers now, but we have an idea what the numbers are, but that will be agreed on in consultation with the MNOs, and then we'll roll it out. The existing SIM register, it is, the National Data Center holds it, but like I said, that register, and I think that I'll use this to answer a question that may come up. If it doesn't come up, all the better, I will respond anyway. It's a question I've heard. Why are you asking all of us to register again if you have some of the data? And DG spoke about 40 million SIMs that were registered previously. Why don't you just identify, you did a sample verification, 81.1% passed. So why don't you just migrate those 81.1%, the 1.3 million out of you did 2.3, you did like 2.3 million tests, and 1.8 passed. So why don't you just migrate the 1.8 and ask the rest to just go and do the registration again? The reason why you can't do that is two-pronged. First, you saw the system, the example of, I don't want to say fake Ghana cards, because one may be real, one may be legitimate. But you saw the duplicate Ghana card that was shown. In the system today, part of that 81.1% that has passed the first phase could be fraudulent could have been done with fraudulently acquired Ghana cards, which are not legitimate. So what you will then do, if you just do a wholesale migration, is that you are migrating the flaws of the old system into a new system and claiming that you are cleaning up. You're not cleaning up. You're actually migrating the viruses. You have infected files and you are migrating them onto a new system. You are basically replicating the problems of the old system. And that's part of the reason why we can't do a wholesale migration. And that's cured today by NIA's solution that they are offering to us based on the collaboration we are having with them, which is a liveliness test. So, because you see, I could take your Ghana card and enter the details. In the old system, I could actually take a photo. I could register on the old system with a photo of your card, and the system will accept it. Now, with this new system, you can't use a photo of the card. You need to do a real liveliness test of the individual himself for the facial contours to be picked and matched against their database. And that's why the NIA, outside of even this registration, has issued a warning that institutions like banks should stop photocopying the Ghana cards of individuals, because that whole process now defeats the technology that the NIA has employed or has deployed for verification. And so, Dixon, I want to believe I've touched on the PTSD part. We will continue to work, and I'm sure that, you see, I keep saying that with these processes, because people still remember the pain that they went through barely 2-3 years ago and the difficulties that we faced, it is legitimate.
And that is the Minister in charge of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nartey George. Let's speak now to Alfred Okanse, our man who sat through the presser. I saw him asking a few questions for clarity. Alfred, thank you for joining us. To start with, what out of that presser were the highlights for you?
Well, thank you, Martin, and good evening to our listeners. And just starting on the back of what the Minister in charge of Communications ended on, the point about why this particular registration in the first place. And that's a question that I asked because a lot of people who are listening to us, and then we've done our own interaction with members of the general public, who say, I mean, look, we went through a stressful period of registration between 2021, 2022, thereabout, into 2023, and now we have to go through it again. Why do we have to do so? And he says that it was because during that first registration of our things, there was no verification process and then the synchronization effectively with the NIA data. And this time around, there's multi-stakeholder collaboration and engagement. So the NIA, the MNOs, that's the mobile network operators, and then also the NCA are going to play a critical role. All of them have sat around the table, made presentations to Cabinet, and he did indicate that Cabinet brought in the mobile network operators themselves and other stakeholders into Cabinet to come and also ask questions of the entire process for the President and indeed Cabinet entirely to understand why there's a need to do this again, especially taking into consideration the public concern. So at the heart of this second registration of the SIMs is the comfort and then also less stressful process, because he says that this was one of the major issues that they picked up when they engaged members of the general public. So there's going to be a lot more of a seamless registration process. So those who don't even have access to the internet, there's going to be a USSD option that they would also employ, so you can lock a period of some sort of engagement for the next day, so you don't have to queue. The measures that have been put in place to reduce the queuing, which was one of the major issues during the first period of the registration of our SIMs, a lot of people queuing at the office of the mobile network operators, that is also being addressed based on the measures that they have put in place. I'm talking about the National Communications Authority, the Ministry of Communication themselves. The NCA Director General did indicate that because of the evolution of our SIM registration in Ghana, right from the pre-2010 when If you buy a SIM card, there was really no mandatory SIM registration. Between 2010 and 2012, there was a first SIM registration exercise, and that saw multiple IDs being used by owners of SIM cards. And that generated a concern about how that is also not effective in identity verification. And that's what has been addressed by the liveliness test that the minister talks about. So that now, from going ahead, there's going to be an update of the legal framework for the SIM card and the number registration. There's also going to be the strengthening of the biometric verification to address the loopholes in the first registration period that took place. We saw some people using other people's Ghana card to register numbers that the owners of the Ghana card are not aware of. We've heard of instances where your card, for instance, Martin, your Ghana card can register up to 10 SIM cards. But even though you know that you only own 2 SIM cards, as in 2 mobile numbers, you can go check with the NIA and you realize that your Ghana card number has been used to register more than 2 of the numbers which you don't own. This new registration process is going to address that. And there's going to be an enhancement of convenience in the mobile number registration as well. I asked a question about whether or not there are safeguards to ensure that this is not going to be the last time that we're going to do this, because when the first registration took place, Eslo Owusu was the communications minister at the time, did indicate that this was going to be the only registration of our SIM. Now we are at the point where another minister is saying we have to do this again. So what are the safeguards that another minister wouldn't come after the Honorable Sam George to say that we have to do this registration of our SIMs again because they have identified some loopholes? He says that there are 3 safeguards. 1, there's been extensive stakeholder engagements, which he says didn't happen in the first instance. 2, there's a liveliness test that the NIA is doing now. And then 3, there's also extensive engagement with the MNOs as well to ensure that they play a central role in the process. So these are the big takeaways from the engagement earlier today.
Right. And finally, Alfred, when should we expect this exercise to start? When is it ending?
So the minister was clear that no date has been set as yet because they're doing the extensive engagements because they want the pre-registration engagements to be extensive, wide enough to ensure that all the issues are addressed before the rollout of the program. Yeah.
Right. Alfred, thank you so much for your time this evening. Alfred of Kanse is a man who sat through the press conference, ended a few minutes ago. It was by the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation, Sam Nartey George. And he is more or less just reiterating the fact that we all need to go and register our SIMs again because the first exercise, which happened a few years ago, did not capture every specific information needed. Plus, the data they already have, about 40 million SIMs that have been registered, seems to have some of the data compromised. And so they want to start on a clean slate where everything is afresh. You bring your Ghana card and the requisite documents, you register. Then the bigger aim is to ensure that we reduce the issues of mobile money fraud, and then also one person having a specific SIM card, you can be able to trace and locate where you are, for security reasons. So these are the justifications given by the ministry. And when that exercise is scheduled to begin, trust your reliable news source to update you and also help you understand where you need to go to start the exercise. They've also given clear indication that it will not be as cumbersome as the previous time. And you recall that a few years ago when we all had to go and register, there were initial threats after some time that if you do not go, you are going to forfeit your number or you are not going to be able to transact mobile money services on your registered number or your phone number, which got people scared. Many of them, because of that, they had to register. But the reason being given is just to ensure that we all are in a particular database that the government will need, and if services need to be delivered to all of us, it will be done appropriately. and also to prevent the increasing SIM card and mobile money fraud that has been reported day in, day out. 92.7 is the station, 3FM. You're listening to Hot Edition. We're going on to some other stories now. And the Director General of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, Professor Ahmed Jinapor, says public interest in honorary degrees and academic titles is declining following a recent crackdown by the Commission. Speaking before Parliament's Assurances Committee on Tuesday, he explained that stricter enforcement measures are helping to curb the misuse of such titles by individuals who have not earned them through academic work. He says a scientific study by GTech has shown a shift towards greater restraint among institutions, noting that only the University of Mines and Technology has awarded an honorary degree to businessman Ibrahim Mahama under more regulated conditions. Professor Jinapor was responding to concerns over the growing abuse of honorary titles by individuals who have not undertaken the required academic research or publications. Here are excerpts of the engagement he had with Parliament.
Mr. We cannot have the Director General of GTech here and not have public interest question about his love letters that he has been writing and receiving responses sometimes equally love letters. We haven't heard of you in a while. We don't have any more, charlatans in the system.
This business of name and shame is informed by we having conversations with people. We have been talking to people and we have been writing. And in fact, just today, we signed a letter. And when we talk to them and they agree and they more or less recuse themselves, it doesn't come into the public domain. And when we write to them and they provide evidence, it doesn't come into the public domain.
You have especially said that anybody who has honorary doctorate degree cannot use it. Is that right?
That's what we said.
Is it for widows who are living or even the dead cannot use it?
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I think I can pick a cue from where your question.
You can't pick a cue. I'm asking you a simple question. You have to answer. Is it even for the dead as well?
Okay, so Chairman, what we say is when people are given honorary doctorates and they use it in a manner that more or less looks as if that person is Dr. Clement Apak, then it becomes misleading. So if you are given an honorary doctorate and I see you, oh, Dr. Tampuli, then he says, oh, how are you? And he doesn't sign. There's no problem. And you attest to the fact that based on this exercise that we took, Mr. Chairman, the data points to the fact that people are not going in for the honorary doctorates. In fact, this year, we are doing a scientific research to determine institutions that are giving honorary doctorates. Just find out, only one public institution has given honorary doctorates, which is UMAT, to Ibrahim Mahama. Previously, almost every institution was just giving honorary doctorates. But now people are not interested because they cannot use it. Those who are proper doctors, let them use it. Those who are not, they shouldn't go in for it. Thank you, sir.
Well, answering a question on whether Kwame Nkrumah should be stripped of the doctor title, Professor Jinapor observed that the former president might have ignored the use of that title were he alive today. Deputy Minister for Education, Dr. Clement Apak, cited the recent award of an honorary doctorate degree to President Mahama in South Korea and reckoned that the matter becomes a deception only when the recipient brandish the titles in public and insist they be addressed as such.
Well, you will notice that just a few days ago, His Excellency the President was honored at a university in South Korea with an honorary doctorate. I've never heard him use it. He won't use it. And many of the other heads of state that you refer to, I've never heard them use it or insist that it should be used. So the issue has to do with what the beneficiary of the honorary degree seeks to do with that honorary title.
We all grew up knowing Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, every one of us. If we were to find out that he did not get it, it was an honorary degree, are you suggesting that we should take it off him? That's all I'm asking.
Honorable Chair, we call him Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I grew up calling him Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I don't remember Kwame Nkrumah telling me to call him Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So he cannot be faulted. I am calling him Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That is my response.
Parliament, based on our Act 1023, gave GTEC the mandate to determine the use of such titles. So GTEC can say that if you have an honorary doctorate, you can use it at a point in time. I say this because at the time that Kwame Nkrumah was given honorary doctorate, maybe nobody was even interested in finding out whether it was honorary or it was even proper for him to use it. What we are saying is that in this particular dispensation, there is a seeming abuse of the use of such titles to the extent that, as Honorable Tampuli said, people today are being given honorary professor. Honorary professor. We never knew about that. People today are given certificate that I have seen. You are awarded an academic degree, professor in. Meanwhile, it's a rank. So if President Mahama today is giving honorary doctorate and he says he's not going to use it, it is reflective of the dispensation that we find ourselves now. And Nkrumah then, maybe if he was alive today, he would say he wouldn't use it. So all we are saying is that if you are given honorary doctorate, do not use it.
Right, they say a word to the wise is enough. Let's engage Christian Yali, our parliamentary correspondent, who's sat through this meeting for us. Christian, thank you for your time. To start with, what were the other issues that came up out of this meeting between GTEC and Parliament?
In fact, largely the other issues that came up were to look at some regulatory oversight responsibilities of GTEC and the ministry, which is a mother agency, to look at how some universities that are being set up fresh would have their regulations looked at. In fact, there have been a number of legislations laid in recent times in Parliament, in the last session and this current session, that in a way have either established new universities or have, realigned certain managerial issues in other universities. So we've been looking at even one like the Kwame Nkrumah University and even other issues like strike by colleges of education teachers. So those were some of the issues that came up with the meeting with GTEC. But we know that, Martin, before the Assurances Committee as well, there were other agencies like the Fisheries and Aquaculture Ministry, represented by the Minister Emilia Asa, who largely also spoke about premixed fuel and issues surrounding that. You know that it's always topical when we talk about premixed fuel and the fact that some fisher folk do not get access to them. Yet again, the recent issue which became a national one about the pirate attack in the Central region also came up. And she, as part of addressing that concern, indicated that government already is looking at licensing artisanal canoes. Now, the law that the ministry uses right now enjoins or enshrines them to license all canoes. She says they've been able to do that for industrial and semi-industrial canoes, but they are now looking at extending it to artisanal canoes. There again, another important step they are taking would be to enhance communication for fishers at sea, because then when they move to a certain distance, you cannot access them via phone call or anything. So they are introducing or they are procuring what they call transponders to enhance surveillance at sea, and then other communication gadgets that would help in ensuring that there is adequate and immediate safety response whenever such situations like the pirate attacks do occur. So largely, these are some of the snippets, the major highlights from the Assurances Committee, a committee that looks at what government officials pledge or they say, either on the floor of Parliament or wherever they say them, and then they would then interrogate or probe further whether such, commitments have been met or not. And it is chaired by the minority side, Martin.
Right. Now, let's go to the House itself. We know that conversations have also been ongoing. Any highlights you have for us?
Yes. Typically, one that MPs would always talk about, which is the District Assembly's Common Fund. Last week, there was a committee of the whole, which is a closed-door session to look at the District Assembly's Common Fund, the formula for 2026. Now, after the committee of the whole, which involves both sides of the House, felt that in-camera hearing or that sitting without the media, they looked at the formula. Now, they brought a report today, and out of that, 8.7 billion cedis has been approved for distribution of the District Assembly's Common Fund to all MMDAs across the country. But you will have MPs always share their sentiments and comments. And one that, stood out largely was how effectively these funds could be utilized or used. And foremost among them was the Kakwadi MP, Kwabenoche Bakumensa, who indicated that when you look at some of the portions or allocations, there is one aspect about reserved funds that should be used for typically distressed MMDA, and part of the allocations also for the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, to intervene in emergency situations. But his concern largely was that over the years, over the period, NADMO usually outsources rice or buys rice from other countries or imports. And so he was suggesting, among other things, that NADMO uses the funds to purchase locally produced rice, which are in abundance. But again, one that has been approved, other issues that have come up have been some legislations. There is one about establishing a university for engineering and agricultural sciences in the eastern region, which will have other satellite campuses in Bunso, and then as well another one in the Ahafo region as well. And so right now, as we speak, Martin, they are considering the Security and Intelligence Agencies Bill, which has been under consideration for quite some weeks now, also because it is a crucial bill that talks about the security architecture of the country, the defense architecture of the country, and all that revolves around that. So that is what members of Parliament are currently considering. And then we'll dive into tomorrow what will come up, as well as the next week, where we expect possibly the House to adjourn for the Easter holidays.
Thank you very much, Christian Yali, for that report from Parliament. And he's our correspondent in the House of Legislature, updating us on what's happening there. We are staying in Parliament because the minority members on the Budget Committee of the House have expressed concern over what they describe as a lack of transparency between the Ghana Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana regarding the Gold for Reserve program. The caucus says that the reported loss of $214 million under the program is unacceptable and must be explained by government. Speaking to journalists after a meeting with officials from the International Monetary Fund, the vice chair of the Budget Committee, Alexander Ijare, said that authorities must account for the losses and provide clarity on how the program is being managed. I will bring you that inset in subsequent bulletins. But what we also know is that this conversation has been ongoing for some time between the Bank of Ghana and Gold Board, trying to justify or give clarity regarding how some $214 million, they refer to it as operational losses, and that they were necessary amounts that needed to be used or expended so we can at least, secure gold the right way, which now has become a major backbone of the Ghanaian economy. Now let's listen to that conversation that came up after the meeting. The vice chair of the Budget Committee, Alexander Ijare, has been speaking to the media.
There should be transparency because we asked the IMF, and then since they are diplomats, they could not come out clearly, but it's out there that, over $240 million, was an issue between Gold Board and then the Bank of Ghana. So the government should set up, because people of Ghana are not ready to make, losses over a program that's supposed to support our currency, then in the end, we are spending so much and then making losses as well. So there is a lack of transparency in the dealings of Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana, which we think the government should come out clearly, because it looks like it's a kind of a sensitive area. They don't want people to go at all, but people of Ghana demand to know. We can't just lose over 240 million, yet we will not get, good answers to that. Government should be transparent. It is the people of Ghana, it is our money.
In more news tonight, the Tema Metropolitan Daycare Center has been closed down until further notice following the Sky Arrow microlight aircraft crash that killed 2 people yesterday. 24 hours later, investigators arrived at the scene to collect the debris. Personal items of victims include mobile phones, handkerchiefs, keys, and some amounts of money were retrieved. Meanwhile, forensic investigators from the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation and Prevention Bureau have conveyed the debris from the scene for further investigation. According to the Commissioner of AIB Ghana, the aircraft has no black box, and he was quick to add that standard procedures would be followed in this investigation process.
We handed over the place to the military and the police. The place was cordoned off, and so they took charge of the place until we came this morning. So this morning we are here to collect the wreckage, which we have done. The Ghana Armed Forces, and for that matter the Air Force, have given us a truck that we've used to convey the wreckage, and it is what we're going to use for the investigation. We've also picked all the pieces that we need. We've done all the interviews that we need to do with the witnesses. We have done that. Whoever was here as an eyewitness, we have contacted them and taken their side of the story. So we are going to add all that, and we come out with an investigation. We have all the security services. Lemon placed on record that we have to say thank you to all the security services. The response time was excellent. We are so much happy, and we enjoy the collaboration, and this is how we can collaborate together to put Ghana forward. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, and in due course you will hear from us when we start the investigation.
And you heard the voice of the Commissioner of the Airport Accident and Incident Investigation and Prevention Bureau, who has been speaking to the media after they went there today. Yesterday's crash was unfortunate. 2 people died, and the school compound where the aircraft crashed, we are told the students were safe. They currently will not be coming to that school, at least for the next few days, as investigations continue. Let's go to the Ashanti region now, and the Ashanti South Regional Police Command has announced the arrest of 3 suspects who have been linked to the murder of the Kumasi Kusasi chief at Aswasi in the region. The Ashanti South Regional Police Commander, DCOP Joseph Nyaba, briefing the media on Tuesday, mentioned the 3 suspects as Jamil Usman alias Babamu, alias Guru, Suleiman Yasser Arafat alias Obasanjo, and Shaidu Sumbaida alias Aishadu. He said that arrangements are currently underway to hand the 3 suspects over to the Ashanti Regional Police Command for further investigations. DCOP Nyaba disclosed that subsequent intelligence-led operations building on the earlier arrests reported at their last briefing has brought the total number of suspects in custody to 12. Let's listen to some of the key issues he raised in his submission.
Suspect Ilyasu alias Abodam remains at large, and efforts are underway to arrest him and other members of the gang who have since gone into hiding. The service remains committed to recovering all firearms believed to still be in the possession of the network. I wish to highlight that the scale of weapons recovered, the number of arrests made, and the links established to the Aswasi case underscore the seriousness and effectiveness of the operation. The service reaffirmed its zero tolerance stance against armed robbery and the unlawful possession and trading of firearms, and will continue to pursue all individuals involved in such criminal networks with the full force of the law. On behalf of the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Christian Teteyonu, I wish to commend all officers who took part in this operation and who continue to discharge their duties with dedication and professionalism in safeguarding lives and property.
This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. It is live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. Before we bring you business and sports, let's go to the office of the Vice President, where Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang has renewed calls for Ghanaians to embrace agriculture as a pathway to national development and self-reliance. During a working visit to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, she said Ghana has no excuse to depend on food imports despite its favorable climate. The Vice President commended farmers, women, churches, and research institutions such as the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research for supporting food production and urged stronger collaboration to boost output.
Hear you, especially graphic and so on, about social media, and I think it raises information for all of us. But it's about collaborating. And it's about trying to put yourself above the curve. How do I do that? Today, people are reading on their tablets or they are reading on their screens. How else can you arrange yourself to be part of this? For example, okay, maybe not the same way. Can we also show an alternative so the users of the information have choices? How about people who want to go to information that is not distorted? We all know that information is never innocent. Insofar as it is based on selection of material, definitely it implies that some of the material has been left out.
And you had Professor Naana Opoku-Agyemang, who is the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. She was actually talking after she paid a working visit to the Daily Graphic and other media outlets as well. But more importantly, her point about the earlier story has to do with the fact that she believes that state institutions and private entities that have supported in food production in the country need to be commended, and particularly mentioned or singled out the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, who have been at the forefront of ensuring that we provide quality food products, or at least the basic seeds and plants needed for quality food production, and then those that are scientifically backed are what our farmers use to ensure that as a country we are able to be food sufficient going forward. And if you go to our website 3news.com, you'll get many more of updates on the stories we brought to you this evening. Time now though for the latest in the world of business.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also coming up tonight, Chamber for Petroleum Consumers Ghana cautions government against hasty fuel tax cuts amid Middle East tensions. We'll bring you details. Thanks for the company. Now to the very first story. The Chamber for Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, has advised the government to exercise extreme caution regarding calls to slash levies and taxes within the petroleum price build-up, despite the recent surge in global oil prices. Speaking on the back of escalating conflicts in the Middle East, which have sent international crude benchmarks climbing, Executive Secretary Duncan Amwa warned that a hasty decision in taxes could leave the state financially vulnerable if the geopolitical situation worsens.
A consumer is a rational person who would not want to spend so much for something he could spend very little for, or relatively little for. And so if it is even a 10 peswa or 20 peswa per litre reduction, the consumer would always welcome it. If you take off the taxes now, at what expense exactly? And then at what mitigation exactly? If you are doing around 16 and you even decide that for the window, I could take out the entire 1 Ghana cedi D levy that was slapped on it, you come back to 15. It's still better than 16. And so for most consumers, I think that, but that would also be the prerogative of government to decide if it can afford, lowering taxes for a week or two. Again, it will bring you back to the earlier question I raised. How far worse would this get? If it is going to get worse in the coming days, then taking off the tax at this point, you are simply slapping a stone to an elephant. It won't have that much of an effect.
And you heard Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, Duncan Amwa. That brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Oreku Ampofu is here for sports. Please stay.
Obviously, they have more rest.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Oreku Ampofu. Now, the FIFA Disciplinary Committee has rejected Nigerian Football Federation's claim that the Democratic Republic of Congo used ineligible players in the 2026 World Cup African Playoff Final. Nigerians plans to appeal possibly to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. That's DR Congo, who won on penalties, remain scheduled for the Intercontinental Playoffs in Mexico facing the Jamaica, and then also the New Caledonia winner on March 31, that's 2026. Nigeria has under 10 days to overturn the decision before the tournament, that's the Intercontinental Playoffs, does begin. There's Champions League action going on currently with Sporting CP trying to overturn a 3-goal deficit against Bodo Glimt. However, later tonight, Chelsea themselves would also look to overturn a hefty 3-goal deficit as they lost 5-2 to Paris Saint-Germain in the first leg. Liam Rosino, who is the coach of the Blues, is confident that his side can battle it out until the end.
That's natural, but that's normal. I can't speak about other league schedules or what they do. What I can do is try and make sure that my team and our team are ready to give absolutely everything into this game in terms of the intensity, in terms of the quality that we need, and hopefully we can turn around a difficult scoreline, but not an impossible one.
In other games, Arsenal also host Bayer Leverkusen with the tie leveled at 1-1 on aggregate, and then Real Madrid also head to the Etihad with a 3-goal advantage against Manchester City. That's how we bring an end to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofu.
Your finest tunes.